Hi, true crime grapevine fans. It's me, Patty Lee, your dyslexic armchair detective. If you've been here before, hi, nice to see you again. If you haven't, the True Crime Grapevine, hosted by me, Patty Lee, is a update on all the true crime, gossip on the grapevine, although I do try to make sure that I give you my main squeeze sources that you can depend on to be as accurate as possible. My background was in educational psychology, which is developmental psychology, human psychology, how people think and are motivated. I focused on the typical. So I try to bring a little bit of a psychological perspective into the show, and I do cite a lot because I am ABD, which is all but dissertation, meaning I have a half doctorate. That's not really a thing, but I mean I did all my doctoral work and I passed all my tests. I just didn't write the book at the end, but that's why I cite a lot, because we're taught to cite everything to make sure you're not just saying your opinion. And I try to make sure that when I'm just saying my crazy opinions, that that's just me. And otherwise, I tell you what I got from watching all the interwebs, all listening to all the main YouTubers, reading the local news. I try to make sure that what I tell you is as accurate. I call it AFOC, as far as we know right now, which is as good as I can do. But it's still, from hearing everybody else talk, and I sort of put it all in one place for you each week. So let's go. This week is my 34th episode. It's not exactly by week, since I started on February 23rd of 22, which is 2/22/22, if you're counting. But it's the 34th time I've done this. I update about every 7 to 10 days, sometimes 6, sometimes 12. But I always try to catch you up on everything that happened from the last time I uploaded, so you're always caught up and you can follow back. I have playlists for most of the main cases, and I have a playlist of all my full episodes. All right, so this week covers October 28th through November 22nd. I hope you had a great Halloween if you celebrate, and if not, welcome to November. I did a sober October, so I usually pair some alcoholic beverage, something fun to drink with each episode. I used to do each case, but I got a little tipsy and sick from I mixed up wines with liquor, and we all know, what is it? Wine before liquor, never sicker. And after that, I had to scale it back and just choose one. So it is November. We are no longer doing sober October. We're doing nasty November, and I'm going to start with some Fireball. I've been telling you it makes things Irish, which is my descent, but it is a cinnamon whiskey. I'm going to do, my kids who are all over age tell me that it isn't as alcoholic. The percentage isn't as high as like regular whiskey, or I don't know if that's true. But we're going to pair whiskey with A&W Root-beer. So I consider alcohol sometimes medicinal. I do a shot medicinally, and if you like true crime, you know how you might need to have some medicine while you're listening to just deal with the insanity of some human choices and interactions. And if you don't have a problem with that, I suggest it. If you do have a problem, I'm all for coffee and tea, water, whatever you're comfortable with. You don't have to drink. But if you are drinking and you do want to follow along, yes, Fireball cinnamon whiskey with a shoot back to get the taste out of my mouth. Although this taste isn't too bad. With A&W Root-beer. So the cinnamon with the root beer right afterwards, I think is a fabulous taste, which I'm thankful for. That's right, it's November. You can't see behind me. I took down my October wreathscape, and now we just have some fun leaves to celebrate November. I will have something hopefully soon another fun light to put back here. So, if you care. If you don't, get your drinks ready. We have about 5 cases. There wasn't a lot going on, and I think with midterms and the politic crap coming up, let me just tell you, I think we've had enough to talk about with crime and mayhem. So we're just gonna stick with what we have. There's not a lot. There's a big break in one case, which was the Delphi case we're gonna talk about first. Then there isn't a lot going on, but there's been some rumblings on the grapevine. We have an update on the Quentin Simon case, a small update on what people are talking about with the Debbie Collier case. We have regarding our trials, I usually talk about like newest crimes to investigation crimes to like if somebody's been arrested, and then the complete adjudication process. The dyslexia almost got me there. Did you hear that? Stuttering is part of dyslexia. Yes, so there's, in the adjudication process, first there's a crime, which if we could stop it there, then there's the investigation, there's arrests made, and that starts this adjudication process, which is going through the trial. And that's a whole long, crazy, drawn out affair. And we're going to be talking about one, which is the Vallow Daybell case, and another one, which is the Wagner trial, the actual trial. So we're getting into trials. If we have time, maybe we'll talk about the, I usually do like celebrity or well-known people cases at the end. There was a crime committed against a well-known individual, which was Paul Pelosi. But I don't want the trolls and everybody getting all excited about getting political and choosing sides. That is not what this is about. Maybe we'll wait until after the midterms to talk about it. So, raise a glass. We're going to get into our first case here in a second. So, I always let my editor know this is our first case. It's our first drink. I have glasses on top of my head so I can read. I hope I don't lose them, so I'm going to put my head up here. Do a shot. Cinnamon. And A&W. That is a fabulous combo. If you've been watching, I tell you, I'm not a big drinker, which is weird. I started drinking pairings because of the grapevine. It was thematic, and as an old teacher, I cannot help but want to be thematic. But as a not competent, experienced drinker, I guess, I've had to really learn more about drinks and sort of push my limits. And I like sweet things. I don't like the taste of alcohol. Ooh, but that was strong but good. Highly recommended. All right, the Delphi murders. If you watch True Crime and you're watching me, you probably are aware of there was a unaliving of 2 tween girls. They were 13 and 14. Liberty German. She was 14, and Abby Williams was 13. They, in 2017, they lived in Delphi, Indiana. Delphi. Real small town, rural. They were going to a local park. They, unbeknownst to their grown-ups, it was a very warm day on February 13th of 2017, and they had the day off school, and they were going to, I think maybe they were celebrating President's Day or a national holiday. They didn't have school that day. I think it was Abby's, I don't remember whose older sister. One of the girls' older sister took them to the park. There's a walking trail, and then there's this big, huge, it's kind of scary, and I can't believe it doesn't have sides. If you Google Moen High Bridge, there's this huge bridge, and I think it's at the end near the reserve. So maybe if you don't want to walk across it, you just go, just complete the circuit and walk back to the front. But it's near the back of this walking trail. So it's not a place that they weren't supposed to have been, and a lot of kids go out there. A lot of people take pictures. We'll get to that. So it's sort of like a site to go to. And they were supposed to be picked up in a couple hours. And they were not there when they were supposed to be picked up, and then there was a search called out by 5:30 that night. It started to get dark. They searched, I believe, all through the night, and the next morning they were found unalive. And the one thing we don't know is there hasn't been a lot of information about how they were actually unalived. They were holding back this information. As we know, in investigations, a lot of the times they hold back information because that way when they do investigate and talk to people, they know if the person is, like, unfortunately there's people who want to get involved and insert themselves in, especially like famous cases. So in this case, they kept a lid on this quite a bit. All we sort of knew was that they had lost a lot of blood and that they were posed, supposedly. That's all we knew. So, what happened new? Well, there was an arrest this past, he was actually arrested, it said, on the 26th, I believe, but we didn't find out until Friday. And what we found out was that this man, 50-year-old Richard Allen, was arrested in connection with, and those are important words, in connection with, the Delphi murders. Why is in connection with? Well, I don't usually go live with every single breaking news. One reason why is, like, just everybody does it, and mostly, or maybe half-wise, let's be honest, there's often mistakes made. Often we don't quite get all the right information at first when there's breaking news. And many people hopped on their YouTube channels and said that, hi Sadie Mae, said that, well, the murderer, like, this is over. Basically, they caught the murderer. And then people were saying, and he had a picture in his house, which was a little bit, we'll get to that, some misunderstandings. He was the murderer. Now, again, the police still are not letting out a lot of information, which is weird, because usually when there's arrest, there's a warrant for the arrest, and then there's the indictment. And both of those things give the public information about why this person's been arrested, and it's a way of publicly notifying the community, as well as then the person, the suspect themselves. They get all this information. But in our judicial system, that is part of, like, the sunshine laws, the transparency, to ensure that people aren't just arrested by the state for no reason, which used to happen prior to us being a country. In England, they could just arrest you for anything. It didn't have to, the state in England, which was the monarchy, didn't have to say why they were arresting you. They could just make it up as they went along, and they could keep you arrested for as long as they wanted without even telling you why, right? Which we, and by we I mean the United States, when the Constitution was written and as our judiciary laws were being written and how they came to be, one of the big things was we demanded, the people, demanded more transparency to assure the community that the authority wasn't overstepping their bounds, as well as giving the accused all the, they have the right to know who is accusing them of what. And that is how they do their defense. Well, in this case, it wasn't even clear at first that the suspect was, and I don't even know if the suspect was provided with everything, like all this information, because I assume they would have to be because of the Constitution. But as far as we know right now, the public and what the media is being told is that the investigators are keeping a lid on all of this. They still have their tip line open. They still are asking the community to provide them with any information if you know anything about this case and what happened. So, what does that mean? That isn't normal. And a number of lawyers, including ones in Indiana, have said they've never heard of a charging warrant the actual arrest warrant and the indictment being sealed immediately and being kept from everybody seems a little strange. Why would they do this? So, let's go back to the words he was arrested in connection with. So there's a couple reasons, a couple ways you can be arrested for the big M, murder. One, you can be arrested if you actually are the perpetrator, right? They're accusing you of doing this act directly. You can also be accused in connection with, in being like a co-conspirator. We'll talk about the Vallow Daybell case. If you help plan it, if you know about it, if you help hide it, also in the Wagner case, all of that, you're involved, you can be charged with the actual murder. You don't have to have been the person who actually committed it. So one of dyslexia. I have a lot of ideas fighting to get out. So I'll just tell you what we know, which isn't much. This man is a member of the Delphi community. Now, people are saying, one of the first things was, again, one of the first, I believe, misunderstandings was there was a picture of this Richard Allen. He was with his wife, and they were in a local eatery. And behind him, you can see that they have the sketches of the suspects. And I believe the picture was taken in 2021. The first misunderstanding was people were like, oh, that was his house. He's got it. It's up on his fridge. It's in his kitchen. He did it. It's a trophy. Oh, right there, you know he's in trouble. The man was pictured, but the misunderstanding from people initially jumping on right away onto the interweb and starting to chat without really knowing all the facts was it was taken in a restaurant. Now, the restaurant owner said these people came in 3 to 4 times a week. They were part of, the restaurant is no longer, I guess, in business. It was called JC's Bar and Grill, but the owner, Bob, was reported as saying, you know, they were friendly. Yeah, they did talk. Yeah, they talked about it. He did mention the murders of the girls. They did. I mean, but as I'm going to report in these other instances, all right, so this is a local man, and he went to a local eatery, and there was, everybody for the past 5 years have been talking about this. So he also was talking about it. The man also said he didn't think that when the pictures of the bridge guy came out and the sound of the bridge guy's voice, and neither of the two sketches looked anything like this man, Robert Allen. And so he was completely taken aback and surprised. So, like I said, my background's in psychology, and I will tell you, when you learn something, everything that happened before can take on new importance that you didn't see. Sometimes because you just missed a detail and they're like, oh, that's what it meant. Sometimes, though, you're rearranging things to fit a new thought, and you're like, oh, and that was also a clue. But just hear me out, and I am not saying that this man is innocent, because I definitely think he's involved. But I am saying that when immediately everybody said, oh, they got the guy, hold your horses a second. Another fact that we could point to, they said, oh, there's a picture of his daughter on that big bridge, the Monon High Bridge. It's like an old railroad trestle that the train tracks are the tracks themselves are no longer there. It's just a long wooden structure that's high up in the air. You know, you can still see the trestle part. And they're like, oh, he posted a picture of his daughter. It was also because he was making a statement. Okay, well, the picture, his daughter's 28 now. It looks like it was maybe a senior picture, either high school or college. And they said his wife, Kathy, posted it on Facebook in 2018. So it was a year after the girl's demise. I don't think she was posting it out of any other reason other than it was a cute picture of her daughter. So I don't think that means anything that like that was claimed. Again, we want things to be a pattern. Our brains want everything to fit. And, you know, we've learned in some of these crimes it doesn't even make any sense. But, and a lot of people, I assume, because this is a nature area that a lot of people go to, and this is a very dramatic setting, I am sure lots of people take their picture there. So again, not abnormal, not unusual. It's just that in this case, now his name is tied as being a suspect. That's difficult, right? I mean, then everything does look suspicious. The third reason, so he worked at CVS. He was a licensed pharmacy tech at the local CVS. Again, this is a very small town. Delphi isn't very big. Apparently the family came in after taking photos of people and the funerals of the girls. One of the girls' family had photos related to the funerals. And he gave them those photos for free, no charge. And again, everybody is very, that means something. He knew, he felt bad, like, because he was involved. Okay. Or, devil's advocate, anybody in that small town who could give these people a moment of grace in their pain would do something similar, right? Now, it does seem clear that the law enforcement has something on this guy, though. So I was just giving you devil's advocate of why we don't jump immediately and go, oh my gosh, this is the guy. We got him. That's it. Like, end of story. Okay. The strange things that I mentioned. Law enforcement is still wanting tips. The FBI is still involved. And I don't know if it was Duty Run or maybe I forget which of the channels brought up the fact, and I think it's a very valid fact, that if the FBI is still intimately involved, perhaps this isn't just an unaliving of these two little girls in the state of Indiana. Because, yes, the state police, Doug Carter, the main spokesperson for the state police of Indiana, they are involved. They are the lead. But we still have FBI here. And I will mention a few other facts. I think it seems as if the FBI might be involved because this is something larger. This is not one person. And now I think there have been three strong other suspects. 2 are in jail, 1 is dead. None were charged with the murders. So there is that. This is the only person that has been charged in connection with these murders directly, 2 counts. So, the police have something, but we don't know what, and the fact that they've sealed everything, that is unusual. The fact that there are other very viable suspects, and the suspects are involved in kitty, something rhymes with corn, would lead me to believe that perhaps there is a larger nexus of maybe some group that has been active. If you are on Twitter at all, the U.S. district attorneys in Montana have been tweeting their recent arrests, and let me tell you about some kitty corn. I will just tell you, I'm using corn for another word because of the YouTube algorithm does not like certain words, which I understand. So, but I think you get my drift. In Montana, there's this huge, like, it seems like a organized group that was involved in some of this. And I think that we have seen that in the past with especially sharing of photos and maybe sharing of other things, which brings me to the other people that were involved. One of the biggest suspects, and actually who I thought they were going to name, was this Keegan Kline. Keegan Kline was, I believe it was 2020 or 21. He was named, he was named after they had been talking about, do you know anything having to do with the social media? I think it was on Snapchat, Anthony Shots. I think it would have been across all social media platforms. Anthony Schatz, now this was, I guess, a young gentleman who now lives in Alaska. He's a male model. He had no idea his pictures had been being used to basically catfish little girls. And this man who was 27, I think at the time, Keegan Klein, and then they went and looked at his house. Like, he had so much of this corn, like a whole field of corn, like like as much corn as you could imagine growing from, like, as far as the eye can see. And he had like 3 or 4 phones and an iPad and an Android tablet, and it was all full of this corn. And he apparently, now he's in jail for those crimes, and I think he's awaiting trial on them still. He was the last, we don't know it was him, right? Because this is social media. He said his dad, Tony, had the passwords also to this profile. But did other people? That is the question. The profile was the last one to talk to Libby. That's the last person she texted. She was, I think it was through Snapchat, texting Anthony, and about, I believe, specifically about meeting him at the bridge. All right, so this other guy, 50 years old, comes out of the blue, and it's kind of like, okay, wow. But what about this Keegan? Like, is there a connection between him and this Keegan Klein? And the land upon which the girls were found that next morning, February 14th, Valentine's Day. It's a horrible day usually for anybody anyways, but for their parents, awful. I don't know if he helped find them, but they were found on his property, this man named Ron Logan. He was 77 at the time. He is now deceased. He died in this past January. But his voice sounds, the police said, not inconsistent. So that's, especially if you're dyslexic, but for anybody, it's hard when you have that double negative. So not inconsistent means is consistent, is similar to what they, what Libby recorded on that little Snapchat clip. Now, we've only heard a few seconds of it, where the gentleman says, guys, down the hill. But it sounds a lot like this Ron Logan, who was recorded by the press, and his house was looked at. He had an alibi that did not work. So they were found on his property. His phone did ping near the area. He looks like the bridge guy. So this Richard Allen guy, he's older. He has a similar shape, but I am telling you, it seems as if perhaps this is, okay, now we are outside of reporting, and this is just me theorizing, but it seems like there may be a nexus of people like the Keegan Klein gets all the digital stuff. He gets the pics, he runs the little website, and then maybe he or his father, because his father's older, of the age of these other people, do they sell them to other local older people? And then did this Ron Logan, who had land right beneath, right next to that bridge, was he like, hey, that's great, ask him to come down to the bridge, ask him to come to this time, and then that's like, I mean, or was there more than one person there? Because these are 2 13, 14-year-old girls. They followed authority and went, I don't know. The person is wearing a little fanny pack. So did they have some sort of weapon in there that they pointed at the girls? We don't have that whole clip. But is that how he maintained control over 2 of them? But then there's this whole other scenario that we haven't quite heard, that it didn't look like where they were found was where something horrible happened, because I don't believe there wasn't all the blood they expected that should be there, and the girls seemed posed, and there's something missing, a trophy. So Again, because we don't have any of the charging documents, the indictment, we don't know why he was arrested. We don't know, did they have digital connection? Like, did he have control over the Anthony shots? Was he controlling it and he said to meet him there? Or was he communicating with Ron, the farmer guy who owns the land? Perhaps they did something together because there's two girls. Would it have taken two people? One to get them off the bridge, and then when they were down, more people to control the situation? It could be any of that. We don't know. So, again, and without knowing it, all the web sleuths are going insane. They are proposing similar theories. Obviously, I've listened to all of them, so mine is an amalgamation of what I've heard. And I don't know, what are you thinking? If you have a theory, put it in the comments below. What do you think happened? Is it just this one guy? Why are they keeping everything under wraps? Why are they still asking for tips? Why are the feds still involved? Is this a larger nexus of some human trafficking, kitty corn situation? We don't know. But it seems almost likely. So, again, to recap, Richard Allen, 50, seems involved somehow. Again, he worked at the pharmacy. Was he just involved by obtaining something illegally that would help put the children, like any child, keep them complacent while something was happening? Could he just be the person that did something with developing other types of pictures? I don't know. But he's involved somehow. And until we get the arrest warrant, until we see, we won't know. We do know he's pled not guilty, so he did have his pleading. That happened all before we, the public, were aware Friday. So I think he was arrested late Wednesday. Thursday he was in court, and Friday the whole world knew and went crazy with theorizing, hypothesizing, spitballing it, if you will. And there's nothing wrong with that as long as you understand. The only facts we have is that he was arrested in conjunction with the murders. So he's somehow involved. We also know they are still asking for tips. So if you know anything, please contact the FBI in Indiana, the Indiana State Police. They have a anonymous tip line. So, but we don't have the charging documents. Until we have that, we actually don't know much, except the police know more, but they're still investigating. So it's it's up in the air. And I think when things are so up in the air and it's been so long, we just want answers. That's where people start gravitating towards like a simple answer, and they want it done and over with, and let's not worry. Like, this was the bad guy, good, now we don't need to worry about it anymore. Nobody really wants to think about a sort of network of corn people, children of the corn. Nobody wants to think about that. But the clues are leading me and other sleuths to theorize. So this is something that I will let you know as soon as I know what is in those documents. But for now, they're sealed. His next hearing isn't for a while. He will have a pretrial hearing in a couple months. Like, they are still looking into this, people. So the news organizations are trying to get the charging documents, something. I think the arrest warrant has less information, and the indictment is the thing that has all the big information in. I mean, the judge has seen something that is allowing him, that he was arrested, he pled, and now he's being held in jail. I believe no bond. And he had to be moved from he was first at the Carleton County Jail. He had to be moved away from the area for his safety. People are not happy about what happened to those two girls. And we also know anything having to do with children and crime, criminals will mete out their own form of justice. So, and they want to keep him safe because obviously he knows more. So I think he's just one part of a bigger nexus of bad people that children and corn. Something bad is going on in Delphi, and we are going to find out more about it, and it will be ended, but at least they got one more, allegedly, as far as we know, and we don't know what he did to be part of it. If you just know somebody has committed murder, and you don't tell, and you protect them, you can be charged with murder as well, like this. So, again, we don't, what can we learn from this? I always say, what can we learn? The girls were so bright to use their social media to at least get some photos of their perpetrator, because without them, we wouldn't even know what someone looked like and what happened, even for a little bit. I mean, there's 40, I think we've only seen like 3 seconds of it. There's like 40 other seconds that the police have that they're not releasing because it's pertinent to the investigation. Always have your phone on you. Obviously use it to document anything you think is squirrely. Also, even if you're threatened, don't go to a second location. And they were 13 and 14. Of course, they wouldn't know this. But if anybody's listening, the answer is run. He can only get one of you. Maybe even shooting is difficult. The answer is, they were high on that bridge, but man, running was the answer. We know so as adults, I am telling everybody who's listening, especially if there's 2 people and one person, even if they have a weapon, the answer is you take your chances and you start running and screaming. And I've told my children, if anybody gets their hands on you, actually, you fall to the ground like a freaking toddler and you starfish and scream, because people can't pull you when you're flat on the ground. They can pick you up when you're upright because you weigh less. Your center of mass is very different. If you're laying on the ground and you starfish, legs akimbo, screaming your head off, they're a lot less likely to keep at it, because it's going to be very hard to pick you up. All right. Again, though, that is for future reference. These girls did everything they could. They did everything right. Again, know what your kids are doing on social media. Know if they're meeting people. It's not the parents' fault, but what can we learn from this? Watch your kids' social media. Man, there are predators out there. Warn your children. If you let them have social media like Snapchat, Twitter, Be Real, all of those things, anything where people can contact you, you have to talk to them that people aren't who they pretend to be. If you're going to meet anybody in real life, you meet them in a public area, crowded public area, with hopefully adults around you. You never go into the woods, ever, unless there's a pack of you maybe. Even then, the rule is you don't go into the woods alone, and certainly not just with one friend. And if someone wants to meet you in a wooded area, the answer is no. Again, and Abby and Libby can't hear this information, but maybe we can help others. I'm sure it's just horrific. So parents, talk to your kids about social media. Everybody else, don't meet anybody ever in a wooded area alone. Don't meet anybody that you met on social media unless you are in a very public area and they don't know where you live and you don't tell them very much about you. We all know the story. All right, so that was the Delphi case. That was my case 1. We are to our second case, deux, and we're going to take our second shot, and boy do we need it after talking about the update with the Delphi case. We are drinking cinnamon whiskey Fireball with we're throwing it back as a shot, and then we are drinking A&W Root-beer because the flavors together are pretty fabulous. Sorry, I'm a bit parched after all that chatting. All right. Our second case. Quentin Simon. What is the update? So we are going into our 4th week of looking for Quentin. Quentin was a 20-month-old that was described as missing from his home October 5th. His home is near Savannah, Georgia. Come to find out, his guardian was his grandmother, wasn't home at the time. She had been working out of town, in, I believe, in another state. I believe it was Illinois. She had a 3-week job. Her daughter had given birth recently to a little girl. The neighbor, who we will talk about, Diana, she would watch the children. It sounded like from maybe 6 or 7 in the morning to like 6 at night. And she was very concerned about, she would call the grandmother and be like, daughter's not doing too good with the kids. They don't have enough food. They aren't dressed right. She's reported all this. She reportedly, or at least has been telling people, that she's called the Department of Children and Family Services. They call it DFACS, I believe, is the term that they use in Georgia. She, so she was doing her part. She wasn't taking very much money, according to her. She was concerned. Well, now she's come out and said, well, let me finish the rest of the story, sorry. Quentin has not been found. After about a week, it was the police came out and just said, we think he's not alive anymore, and we think he was put into this dumpster. We have evidence of that, and that the dumpster then, as it regularly would have been, was taken to the landfill, and they have been looking for the past 2.5 weeks through the landfill. And the thing is, they can't use cadaver dogs because everything's decomposing in a landfill. So it's been pretty horrific, and we've learned a little bit about how, and if you Google landfill investigation for Quentin Simon, you can see they have to take like little portions, dump truck, like little portions, and they like make it real thin in a line. About 30 to 40 people start poking, looking for remains. It's going to be difficult. Hopefully she put a bag around him, which sounds horrible, but if not, then everything is just with everything else at a dump. It's going to be almost impossible. I don't know if you remember, but way back in the summer, early summer, we talked about a woman named Heidi Plank who went missing from LA, and it was theorized she was at this apartment building where her dog was found on a different floor, and it came out that the scuttlebutt, the talk of the town, but nobody, I don't think it was official, but apparently somebody had done something and she was thrown into an incinerator, and they did look where that apartment's garbage went. They never found her. So it's not really easy. So hopefully the mom did enclose him in something, because at least that way the skeletal remains skeletized, even though it wouldn't look like much. Unfortunately, I don't want to be disgusting. Sorry about that. Hopefully it would be held together. That's what we hope happens. So please put some good vibes, prayers, however you talk to the universe, that they are able to find him. Again, they've been doing this for over 2 weeks, trying to find him. It's been a lot. The new update, which isn't really new, last week we learned that the grandmother now she's like, oh, I think my daughter fell asleep and the boys, there was an accident and they drowned. And I told you at that time, well, it was reported that the brother, who didn't live at the house but somehow had an ADT mobile thing, and it went off that the back door, which there's a pool area, that the back door was open from 2 to 5. And then the father of the baby, of the newborn baby, not the father of the baby that's missing, Quentin. So there's like a newborn, a 20-month-old, and then a 3-year-old. The 20-month-old is the one, Quentin. He is the one who is missing, presumed dead. The father of the baby girl said he saw Quentin in the pack and play at 6 before he went to work. So either he is not being honest, or something did happen to Quentin and he was placed in the pack and play and looked like he was sleeping at 6 in the morning. They also called off the babysitter that day, which was odd because apparently even if they worked or didn't work, she was never called off, so that was unusual. So the babysitter now is reporting that she too thinks Quentin did drown. She thinks Quentin drowned because she says, Yeah, I actually have been over to the house, and the 3-year-old has opened the door, and both boys were in a pool. Now, I don't know what this pool looks like, if it's an above ground pool. I don't understand how she could have been over there and just found them in the pool. Like, it must be, is it a pool you can walk into? I don't understand how deep the pool is. I don't understand how that could happen once, and that like, I don't, again, the mother was not supposed to be in charge, at least of she had lost custody, at least of the 2 boys, if not the newborn baby, primarily because she, as is described, is an unrehabilitated chronic drug abuser. I believe all 3 of the children were born with drugs in their system. She lost custody to her mother, but her mother left her still there, I guess, with the boyfriend, thinking maybe the grandmother thought, well, they're with the babysitter all day, and then the newborn baby's daddy is there, so he's like supervising, so she's not the I don't know. It's very sad because it was avoidable, because that mom was not supposed to have any supervision over her children for this very reason. But yes, it's not really an update, but the babysitter now is going along with this. Oh yeah, and they were in this pool before, and I do think it was an accident. I don't know if she's making up with her very dramatic. I mean, the grandmother came over and accosted her and screamed and said she stole the baby. I don't know if she wants to get along with her crazy neighbor and now is saying, yeah, I agree too, it was an accident. Or if I don't know why she wouldn't have said, oh my gosh, I saw those kids in the pool, I bet he drowned. I don't know why that wasn't the first thing she said, besides the fact that she saw a bruise once and that they weren't taken care of. It's strange to me that suddenly now she remembers it, but maybe now she just remembers it. I don't know. It sounds like it's trying to be spun as, it goes along with the whole, oh, it was just an accident. I mean, I think whoever actually was in charge knows exactly that there was water involved, and now they're getting everybody on board with their story. And the thing is, I think I've told you before, from my psychological viewpoint, that people cognitively, even when we write fiction, we can't think of something to be pretend that we haven't somehow either have seen, experienced in another story, directly experienced, know of, historically in some. We can't create something out of absolutely nothing. So, do I believe Quentin probably drowned in some respect? Yes. How? I don't know. I don't know what to believe of those people. Now, the babysitter is saying the 3-year-old could open the door. So did the 3-year-old open the door and the 20-month-year-old went out by himself? Were both of the kids involved and the one came crying in and got mom and mom found baby, the 20-month-old? I don't know. I don't know. Could it all just be a lie and none of that happened, and we don't know. The only reason I do think the pool was involved is because that door thing is interesting. But also, there was a Nancy Grace clip that Ickadmel, so go follow at Ickadmel. I really he's very respectful, he's interesting, he follows a lot of cases, not everybody follows. He was, he played just a little bit and did some commentary on the Nancy Grace clip talking about this case. And Nancy said it was interesting that the police had gotten a warrant for the backyard pool, because typically if something's outside of the house, you don't need a warrant for it because it's not you only need a warrant to go into the actual home. So she was hypothesizing or theorizing that perhaps they knew that there was probably DNA in the pool somehow. I don't know, but that to me makes more sense. And now the people involved are trying to make a story that fits. And maybe the babysitter is, I don't know if she's getting a lot of attention. Does she just want to add to have something new to say because there's nothing new to say right now? And she liked, we like attention. Everybody does. Or is she trying to placate her crazy neighbor who seems off her nut, and now she's out of her mind with whatever? She's the grandmother who is 50 something, I believe, and it's her daughter's children. Her daughter is 22, and it was her grandchild who passed away. Is she acting in such a way what the neighbor wants to be like, yeah, you're right. I'm gonna back up your story. We don't know. But that is our Case 2 update. Please like, subscribe. It's free. You'll get notifications if you hit that bell when I upload, you know, the YouTubey things. And otherwise, we're going to have Case 3 next. We are up to our third case, or if you're from Europe, our third case. Gonna pour just a short shot here. Here's to Debbie Collier. May she rest in peace. May her killer be found, identified. All right, Debbie Collier case. I'm not sure about the police in this case. Again, but it's investigation, and investigations, they don't tell us everything. And sometimes, you know, the police are even legally allowed to not be honest with you if they want to get somebody to confess or people to come forward. So maybe they're playing some of those type of investigative shenanigans. But last time we talked about Debbie Collier, I told you that somehow it was being bandied about that perhaps this was a big S, a self-unaliving, which makes no sense, because why would you take off all your clothes, then burn your abdomen, drive into a place you've never been before, an hour away from your home? None of that makes sense. And you say to your daughter, someone's got me, they won't let me go, and you give her $2,835 for a goodbye present? But you're dressed in game gear prior to all that. The whole thing makes no sense. So, what's new in the update? Well, I'm going to go with all my, the legal guy, they're not lawyers. I'm going to go with all my law enforcement YouTubers, Judy Ron and Police Off the Cuff, Bill Cannon, and I'm going to go and say this is not a self-aliving. This obviously looks hinky, and I think our direction is turning towards one individual who it's kind of been turning towards anyways, but here's what I'm going to say. Just a couple days ago, Debbie Collier's adult son, and his name's Jeff Bearden. He is the brother of Amanda Bearden. Amanda was living with Jeff right before she moved back home and back in with her boyfriend that she has a lot of problems with. Like, they have DV situation going on, not healthy. Jeffrey had some very interesting points to make. Number one, he definitely thinks it's sus. One of his very points is what everybody else is. What the hell was she doing an hour away from her home when she went to a Dollar General all the time, sure, but it was the one right by her house. It was like less than a mile away. What was she doing? Why was she buying that stuff? He's like, that makes no sense. There's like 1 million recyclable bags in our house, and she loves those things, but she has tons of them. We have tarps. She wouldn't need to go buy a tarp. That doesn't make a lot of sense. What? Okay. And then he said, and you know, I don't think that surveillance, that didn't look like my mom. It wasn't the right posture. And I was like, All right, now that's what he said. Now we're into, I told you there wasn't a lot of like hard fact updates, but let's go into the land of theory. I started thinking about what he said, and then I started putting pictures of the daughter next to the mom to look at how close they are. And I also remembered, didn't Amanda say that she had been at that Dollar General recently? Like that same day? Somebody said that, and I looked it up, and it was accurate. It was reported on September 26th. Let me look this up. I wrote it down for you guys just to make sure I wasn't talking out of my you-know-what. On September 22nd, it was reported that the Georgia Crime Investigation Division said over the weekend they received information, so we don't know where or who, claiming that Collier's daughter had been at the store that day. But they were like, but on the surveillance, they could only see Debbie. But what if it wasn't Debbie? What if who they saw was Amanda in a blonde wig, wearing weird clothes, dressed as her mom? Maybe her mom was in the car with somebody else. Maybe, if you look at the video, the car pulls up, and then it's like, no, we're not going to park here. No, we're going to go over here. No, wait, we'll move up closer. And yeah, sometimes you choose, you want to be a little bit closer to the door. But also, if you're worried about being caught on surveillance, what else might you do if you're being caught on surveillance? If you're a little bit heavier than your mom, what might you do? You might dress in a big game shirt. Yeah, that, you can't really tell your shape. And your mom's got this great blonde hair, so a crazy blonde wig. Oh, but your face, it's kind of not exact. Maybe you'd put on a visor. Because the visor would keep a lot of the surveillance from actually seeing your actual face. I think that the shots are hitting me. But, what do you think? It makes a lot of sense to me that the daughter was the one who received the money. The message said how to get into the house because she had just moved home. She had moved home 2 days, back in with her boyfriend. Well, I mean, moved in with her boyfriend, I shouldn't say, because not back where he lived, because they moved into her stepfather's house. But she had just been home for 2 days before this occurred. There had been shouting at the house, according to the neighbors. Something wasn't going all right. Did she want money? Did she want money for her whatever? But the money on the Venmo went to her at 3:17. She didn't tell anything until her dad supposedly got home at 6, around 6 or whatever. He called at 6. So whenever he showed up between 5 and 6 at the house, forever how long it took to go, why don't you call? I would love to know how that went. Did the stepdad go, why didn't you call when you got this message? Because the message, remember, the Venmo message said, they won't let me go. But she waited. She sat on that for over two and a half hours. And then it said how to get into the house. And if you remember, they said, no, her cards are here. But the woman in the video, the surveillance video, paid with credit cards. So was the message a cover on, oh yeah, well, I knew how to get in the house. That's why I was in the house. Oh, I was upstairs. I had checked for my mom's stuff because I got this message and I was worried until my dad got home. Or conveniently touched her cards, touched everything. Oh, we don't know. But how did the cards get back at her house? And why was the daughter in the house with the cards? I'd like to know if Debbie had a blonde wig. Or if anybody bought a blonde wig that looked like Debbie's. Was that Debbie's spirit wear? Why I got all excited about, like, maybe that wasn't really Debbie. Because maybe she was transported there. The dad said he left and he was on video parking cars by 9 o'clock, like 8 or 9 o'clock that morning. And he said he left Debbie in bed. Well, did the sister and the sister's boyfriend come over and get her? Because the other strange thing is, besides somebody saying Amanda was at that store that day, the other weird thing is the woman in the video is wearing shorts, and the son said, and I haven't seen my mom wear shorts in 5 years. But if you look at some reporters, they caught the daughter outside the house. Not only is she wearing shorts, I've seen pictures, there's only a few pictures of her in 3 different pairs of shorts, but she's wearing a purse, and it's slung crossbody, even though it's a huge purse, which usually I wear my purses crossbody, but they're all my little, like, shorter, smaller bags, because it hurts to wear something that's heavy. The person in the video who is wearing the spirit wear, which we thought was Debbie, that person is also wearing a big purse crosswise. And if you look at her coming into the store, her feet, the shoes look huge. So I'm just saying, if the son said he thought the posture was wrong, now he's not saying it's his sister. And they said, do you think your sister could have done this? And he said, I don't think my sister has the capacity, but I worry about the people with her. I really think that the son he's on the right thing, and I think that wasn't Debbie Collier. That made no sense. Everybody said, well, she wasn't going to the game. It looked like she was going to the game. She was buying game day stuff, but then, the daughter was also the one who called into the police the day afterwards. I'm like, oh, hey, maybe you can track her down using her car has the entertainment center. Maybe you could find, here's how you can find my mom. I know where she is, and you can find her using this. I don't know. I'm just saying, and that is all, in my opinion, allegedly, but I trust the son, and I do think that would explain why the big shirt, the big game day shirt, the visor where you can't really see her face, the strange parking job, the strange Venmo, we always say, who benefited from the crime. All right, so that was my Debbie Collier update. That was our third case. Okay, so we're to the trial we're in the adjudication phase. We can't quite get to the trial of the Daybell Vallow case. So Chad's case has been continued now. Remember, Lori Vallow Daybell, only John Pryor, Chad's lawyer, wants to just call her Lori Vallow. He's trying to annul the whole marriage himself. Lori, her case has been stayed, and Chad's case has a continuance now, meaning his case is not going to be heard in January because, remember, it is still joined with Lori's. And now they have to look at the calendar, because even though the case is being heard by people in Fremont County and Madison County in Idaho, they're having the case held in Boise, which is Ada County, a bigger county, to get more of a fair trial. And that was agreed upon. So we have these two people are joined, so they're going to be on trial together, and they're going to be in this other big district, but this big district also has a very busy calendar. So now we know it's not going to be in January. We know that Lori is going to be evaluated. Lori's next hearing about her competency, and I assume it will be sealed and we won't hear about it because it has to do with mental health, unless by miracle, all miracles, they just say, no, she's good to go, let's continue. But we won't hear, hold on a second, old eyes. We will hear about Lori November 10th at 9:30, or excuse me, Lori's November 9th for her competency evaluation. Her case is currently on hold. And then, of course, the next day, on November 10th, Chad's lawyer's asking, they're going to be talking about the hearing will have to do with severing the cases. Why? Because they can't keep John Pryor. That's what the argument will be. And I kind of see the point. You can't keep one in jail forever. My whole problem is anybody communicating between Lori Vallow and Chad Daybell, and is this more of Lori doing what will help Chad? Because we know it helps both of them if they can point the finger at the other one and they're in separate trials. They can also, the one that doesn't go first can see how the other one did. So if Lori, I'm sure what we're hearing is that they're really going to make sure that she's not malingering, meaning faking it. But I don't know. I don't know how Lori is all of a sudden incompetent all the time. She's only incompetent when it very much helps either her or Chad. I mean, I don't think she's normal, but I think she very much understood what she did was wrong. Are they just dragging this out because they really believe there's going to be end time still and all their religious cult doctrine? I don't know, but I wonder who talks to Lori and if somebody has convinced her, hey, you're way better off. Or perhaps her hair was looking horrible. She had horrible roots. Did she figure out, if I go back, if I just do the same thing I did before and I go back there, I'll get my hair done? I don't know, but I wouldn't put it past her. That is just my opinion. That is not fact. That's me theorizing. So that is all we know. That is our update on the Daybell Vallow case. Not much of an update, just we're more on hold. If you want more information, Lori Hellis, she's an attorney. She started her own YouTube channel called Children of Darkness and Light. She predominantly talks about this case. She is writing a book about this case. I would very much recommend her channel. It's crazy. Okay, I'm going to do one more quick. This was our 5th case. I'm just going to use up the rest of my thing because after talking about Lori, I need a shot. I do. That woman. Here's to not being in a cult of any type. Okay. Last case. George Wagner of the Pike County Massacres in Ohio. You may have heard of it. Pike County, which was Piketon, Ohio, is the nearest city, I believe. Although they lived in the outskirts. It's a very rural area. It was the Roden family. 8 of them were murdered, and it ended up being about Sophia, which was Jake Wagner's daughter with Hannah Roden. And they decided that the custody situation would be best solved by offing the whole entire Roden family, and it was insane. This happened in 2016 in April. And for a while it wasn't really clear, and they frankly could have maybe, even though it became clear that maybe they had something to do with it, they could have gotten away with it if they didn't act so squirrely and like run away, come back, and keep all of the evidence. Even though they took it apart and put it in concrete, idiots kept it right on their own property. But we don't want criminals to get away with things, but it's always funny how meticulously a crime can be planned, and then they do something that's sort of anal, like keep something related, and you're like, people, you gotta disperse that stuff. Talk to Barry Morphew. Allegedly, Bear. Not saying you did anything. I'm just saying that if you did have those, it's like photos, doulos. If you have stuff and you're going to 6 different trash receptacles, yeah, people might get, you might look bad. But if they can't really find it, you're way better off than what happened here, which was Jake Wagner eventually told the whole story, and now the past week he has been state's witness, and then Angela for the past 2 days has been on the stand, his mother. And Angela, boy, I would love to know what's going on through her mind, because she was controlling. She apparently, the children all had to be homeschooled, and the children's children, they had to live with the Wagner family, and she would have them basically call her mama, and she would take care of them, and she would raise them, and she was a control freak. So the fact that Hannah Mae Roden had her daughter Sophia, and then was having another baby, God forbid, with somebody else, that just wasn't going to stand. And now she had to be a state witness against George. But if you listen to Jake's testimony and all the other testimony, Gigi at Pretty Lies and Alibis, that's who you should follow for this case. She does a nightly update. One of my favorite Twitter accounts at Chasing Paper 89, Docket, Big E. He is from Southern Ohio. He takes notes, as does somebody else who I forget whose name it was, and they are sending them to Gigi, and she's compiling them. But the YouTube channel Pretty Lies and Alibis, they're also on Twitter, it's Gigi now, has a whole compilation of background about this case, and it is very, her retelling of it is very thorough, and she does a great job. She also has a great voice, and she kind of talks very conversationally, like a friend. I love listening to her. She's one of my favorite main screen sources. And for this case, you have to listen to it, because in 25 minutes, she'll retell you everything that happened instead of watching 8 hours of a trial, which you can watch, although not everybody is on camera, because in Ohio, witnesses are allowed to opt out of audio and visual, which is interesting because these people aren't really witnesses. They are co-conspirators who have pled. And I don't know what's wrong with Ohio's AG, because it was Mike DeWine at the time, who is governor now, but they keep saying they're tough on crime. But let me just tell you, if you're tough, part of the plea deal is, no, you will be. You have to agree to have your face there and your voice there and tell us. Like, that should just be part of it. Or no, you don't get the deal you want, because we got you dead to rights anyways, buddy. Which they did. Anyway, so I don't believe Jake, I think he was odd. No, I think Jake wasn't, they even tried to force and go to an appeals court to make sure, but somehow the judge, he didn't care. Like, I don't know. I think this trial should have been moved, because I think the judge is biased just because of the horrendousness of the crime, and they're from that area, and I am sorry, but I think the judge is trying to keep certain, I don't know, it seems very, they're too much of themselves and clannish, the whole area, and it's a very small rural area, and that's kind of why you move out of the area sometimes, because I don't know, I think whatever happens, they might ask for a new trial based on the trial should have been moved. Anyway, it's just annoying not to be able to hear and see people when they're on the stand. But in any case, Gigi does a great job. She gets notes from people sitting in the court, and they tell about the expression on people's face and if they looked at other people, because it's kind of interesting that these people, they'll never see each other again. This whole family, they killed one whole side of their family. The fathers were good friends. It's very insane what they did. They ruined everybody's lives, and now they themselves, especially Angela, the mastermind control freak, she can't control anything, even her own life, because she's in jail for 30 years. That was her plea deal. So, the only thing that is seemingly not going to work out great, maybe, is this is the trial of George. George did not pull the trigger. George was there, and George knew, and then afterwards George hid from, he never told on his brother and dad who pulled the triggers. I mean, he was with them while they did it. So, if you drive the getaway car, you're still part of the crime. I don't know. A lot of the time, though, was spent on Jake's part of the crime, because it was, they were getting his daughter back for him to have custody. But I don't really understand how that's supposed to put George in jail. Except for the fact he knew. I mean, and the crimes did occur, but they spent a lot of time talking about Jake. I don't know. He's not on trial. He already pled guilty. So that's what we have for trials. I will let you know. Please like and subscribe. This was a little shorter one. Maybe that's a good thing. Let me know if you like me to keep it to a certain number of cases. And put any comments about any of your theories down there. And I will see you next week.